I tell my students, I say, I want you to trust your gut. And I say, if the scene doesn't work, or if you don't get a laugh, or whatever the metric is, if it doesn't work out, like, I don't care, because if you listen to your gut and it didn't work out, it's another rep, right? And the more you do that, the more that you sharpen that instinct. So when I try my best as a teacher to really follow through this and celebrate a student for failing when they trusted their gut, because I'm like, that's great. And they're like, but it didn't work out. I was like, great. I don't care about the result. What I care about is that you did the mechanism, you trusted your gut, and that over time it will. And like, I read Annie Duke's book. She's a professional, world famous poker player, and she talked about how, like, as a poker player, you can't judge yourself by the outcome of any one hand, because luck and circumstances play too much of a role. She says what you judge yourself as a poker player is your decision making process over time, and that the average will almost always average out better, but it's, did I sharpen my ability to make the right decision rather than win the hand?
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. My guest today, Rich Baker, is a powerhouse in the world of improv, comedy, and creative performance. He's the author of Improv Made Easier and has performed and taught across the US with legendary institutions like the Second City, Comedy Sports Chicago, Mission Improbable, and his award-winning duo, Roland and Riches. Rich is also the director and co-writer of the award-winning web series Third Shift on Amazon Prime, a writer for the massively popular YouTube series Epic Rap Battles of History, and the narrator behind the viral hit Jim Wildlife, which has over 44 million views. In 2020, he founded the Dare to Fail Improv School, where hundreds of students have learned improv online, and he continues to teach improv instructors through Queen City Comedy. Today, we get to dive into his journey, his creativity, and his insights. Rich, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Doug, and thanks for the great intro. Appreciate
you. It was an adjusted form of what you gave me. So I'm curious. I'm going to go straight into what I think is a big question. They say your mess is your message. You've got a very strong message. So I'm curious where this began, like heading back a few years. Why improv? Where's the passion come from for you to just, I guess, with improv, to start teaching people and teaching trainers of it? Where did that stem from?
So, yeah, it's I got into improv because my ultimate goal was to be, a world famous comedian of some kind. And I didn't really care what medium it was, whether it was stand up or sketch or, a sitcom act or something like that. I just wanted to be huge and famous and funny. And so when I was, graduating high school, I was, thinking about college and what am I going to do, and how am I going to make this dream happen? And I'd never heard of improv at the time. And so when I first saw improv, I just, how, like, there's sometimes you see something and you just feel like that. Oh, I kind of see the strings. Like, I don't know everything, but I can I feel it. I can see it. This makes sense to me, so to speak. So that's why I got into improv, for very selfish reasons. It's like, oh, this could be a way for me to achieve my, ridiculously big dream, but not have to memorize scripts. So that's how it started. But as I got into it over the years, as I learned it more and more, what I found was that not only was this an artistic expression, a form of comedy, but it was, by the virtue of studying it, you learn so much about yourself. You develop so many skills. You engross yourself in communities with other people. And really, the main crux of improv is you have to support each other and make each other look good, or else the art form doesn't work, which is not true in other art forms, right? You've heard stories of famous movies where one actor hated the other, but they came together, they did their scenes or whatever, or bands where they didn't like each other, but they recorded the music, went on tour, whatever. So it's possible to do other art forms without this. It's not possible in improv without that. And what I realized over the years was that this idea of support each other, make each other look good, was for all the kids out there who were picked last for dodgeball, like myself, or anyone who felt othered or an outcast or just not accepted. Like this was the art form where if you were willing to put your ego away and focus on support of other people, that they would focus their support on you. And that helps people just in life in general. It helps people in business. It helps people in all kinds of areas. And I'm just really addicted to spreading that message now and trying to help people feel community and support and how to support others.
Yeah, wow. So that, like those days, and I remember, before, like at elementary school, before class would start, we'd get there an hour early and we'd play all sorts of different team games, and you
Mm-hmm.
get picked and you get picked last. And it was always so awesome if you got picked first, but that was rare. And so I guess, like in these physical games, we used to have one called Red Rover. You guys probably had a
Oh,
version
yeah.
of it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was fun. But if you got picked near the end that wasn't. So I guess what you're saying there, making each other look good. And I had wondered that. And I was only just because I've never even stood and watched improv occur. Like with,
Hmm.
I'm very green and new to it. But I was just reading some stuff about it yesterday, and I did read that bit. You've got to make the other person look good, because I guess it would be easy to drop a ridiculous line and then look at them like respond. And if it was so off the cuff, you could make the other person look silly, which is just going to make the whole thing flop. So yeah,
Yeah.
and those schoolhood things, those pains we have of being the last one picked. And hey, for me, I remember we had a group of 10 boys who used to all hang around in the fourth grade. And this one boy kept saying, "Oh, I'm going to have my birthday party soon, best birthday party ever. We're doing all these things." He lived on acreage, and then he comes along and he has all of the invitations, and he's standing there, and we're all in the circle around him, and he's handing out. He's going, Brian, Philip, Gary, and he's handing all them out. And I was the last one, and there was no invitations left.
Oh,
And
heartbreaking.
he said, Doug, I'm sorry. He said, but my mum said I was only allowed to invite 9 friends. And if I could have
Woo.
invited 10, you would have been the 10th. So I know where you're coming from, man. I'm, fourth grade, I still remember that clear as day. And, and I don't think it's affected me too much through my life. Maybe it has a real lot and I haven't realized it. But I hear you. I hear you. And I think most of us have had those situations. And if it's not with friends, it's with family, or because family can be even crueler. Um,
Sure.
yeah. So yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. And then the thought there too, where you mentioned about improv, where you don't have to memorize. I'm just curious, did you ever find that an issue, like memorizing things, or and so you swayed off to this side where you didn't have to memorize, just made it up?
Well, like I before improv, I was really into music. I was a singer, and I did a lot of like state competitions, different things like that. And I also was in plays and in high school, and so I was memorizing lines and whatnot. And it wasn't that it was like exceptionally difficult for me, but it was work. And I've always felt like this kind of laziness factor in me that I'm always have to kind of fight. And so if you say, hey, here's a way you can make people laugh where you're gonna have to do a lot of homework and different things like that, or here's a way where you can just kind of show up and crush. I'm like, my brain, that was a no-brainer for me. Like, I'm just going to show up and crush. How about that?
Yeah, wing it. Yeah, absolutely. I hear you on that one. I know I have those lazy tendencies as well, and we get to decide where we put our energy, and it's not memorizing things and stuff like that. I get you. I hear you on
Yeah.
that one
I
for
mean,
sure.
I do like, I still do scripted acting and things where, and I'm happy to memorize scripts when they come along, but it was just at the time, it was a very an easy choice of like, do I want to work real hard or do I want to not work real hard? And of course, the ironic thing is that in order to just show up and crush at improv, you have to work super hard at developing your skills and practicing and all that kind of stuff. So it's not memorizing, but it's still a lot of manpower.
Yeah, allowing things to come through. Yeah, interesting. I'm just curious because my podcast is about men developing their intuition, and I'm curious with your improv school, percentage wise with men, is it high, low, 50-50?
About 50-50. And my students, I've had some of the same students all 5+ years that I've been doing this, and I have people with me for a little while and come and go, so it always changes. But I would say some individual classes might be female heavy or male heavy, but I'd say overall it tends to be 50-50 in my world. But in improv in general, especially if you go back 10, especially 20 years, improv was extremely male dominated. It was, if you took a class, an improv class, pretty much anywhere in America, probably in the 90s or the early 2000s, I'd say on average you'd find maybe two women per 12, 15 person class ish.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because in my my intuition studies, I've done, stuff in person and online, and it's, five, maximum 10% men. The rest's
Mm.
female, yeah. But and it's very challenging to get high numbers of men. Well, you can get the numbers of men, but then the numbers of women grow significantly as well. So when it
Yeah.
comes to intuition, it's yeah, different that way. So I'm always curious with that. And the only guy I've ever interviewed who had a higher percentage of men with it, where he had strong intuition involved, he had a jujitsu gym as well. So he was
Mm.
attracting the men in with the gym and the jujitsu. And then after he sucked them in that way and had them in as long-term clients, then he started teaching them meditation and intuition, qigong, and all those other stuff. But they were
The
always,
old switcheroo.
yeah.
Yeah. Come
But
for the
he,
fight and stay for the meditation.
exactly. But he said, like he really got those who came along, they really stuck with it and they advanced a lot because they were then, they started physically and then moved on and not didn't move on, but added on the other sort of less physical things that yeah, we would typically label feminine, meditation,
Yeah.
these sort of things. Although I think the ancient Chinese Qigong type things and that were sort of definitely had men in that as well. But yeah, and
Well,
you're,
improv's had
sorry.
an interesting history with that because it was really a problem for a while because the attraction for improv is again the comedy part, right? Or at least it historically was. And the basic of improv is yes and. So the for a long time, a lot of improv schools, classes, teachers would take that concept of like, well, whatever happens, you got to yes and it. And so, a lot of men, not all men, but some men who were maybe not as mature or possibly just toxic individuals would infuse content. They would bring up content that was not cool, right? They would, women were housewives or even hookers or, things like that in the scenes. And, women were just told to yes and it. And thankfully, improv has grown a lot. And I can't speak for any specific school or classes, but in general, it's a lot more of a safer space for women now because we're like, hey, we don't have to bring in all the the nasty stuff and every time like we can put guide rails and to say, hey, this is a safe space. We're not going to label you a hooker in this scene, or a good teacher's not going to let that slide. They'll be like, okay, let me stop that scene there. Why'd you label her a hooker? What was the thing about? Not there's anything wrong with sex workers, but just like forcing women into playing these roles and yes anding these things that are not that were just weren't safe. They just weren't comfortable. And as I said, it's a lot better now. And certainly in my school, I don't let people get away with that kind of stuff. And thankfully, that's kind of weeded out some of the more toxic males to make it a little more friendly for women. But yeah, improv's had a big history with that.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And I guess it's, you're in Los Angeles, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess maybe that's the attraction there with the why I don't see improv on the corner, where I drive around town here. Or maybe it's just because it's not something I've gone looking for. I don't know, but I guess the kind of people who live in your town, are, more attracted to looking for acting and things like that. We've got one Warner Brothers movie studio here, like in town where we live, and it's got a theme
Mm.
park next to it and that. But that's the only one, and it's been here a fair while, probably 30 odd years. There's quite a few movies that have been filmed to make them look like they're in the US, but they've filmed them out here. Just different times when, like our the Aussie dollar is very, very weak against the US dollar, so it's cheap to bring them out here and film them.
Yeah.
And my brother used to rent a lot of movie props. He'd go to America and buy a shipping container and fill it up with newspaper stands and you name it, all of the background little drops that were American that
Mhm.
and then he would rent them to the movie studio. Did that for many years because he lived pretty close to it and had a big shed on his
Mm.
property. And yeah, so yeah,
Smart.
yeah. So the name of your school, Dare to Fail, I love it, like because
Oh, thanks.
so many of us include, but well, I'm speaking for myself mostly, are afraid to fail, so we
Yeah.
don't start. And is it, I mean, was that the motivation for your school, like just to like get people in and just have a go, try? Was there some other thing with the name?
Well, I'd love to sound super self-important, but the motivation for my school was COVID hit. I was already struggling financially before COVID, and then when all my in-person gigs went away, I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, time to move home with back home to Texas with my mom. Thankfully, she still got my old room. It's a guest room, but that'll be that. And basically, I said, you know what, I'm going to just throw up an improv class online, see if anyone's interested. And I didn't know what I was. I knew what I was doing as far as teaching, but I didn't know what I was doing as far as running my own thing. I'd only worked for other places before who did all the administration, did the pricing, did the scheduling, did all that stuff. So that was all brand new to me. But I'd say as it's grown, the reason I call it Dare to Fail is goes way back well before I started school, which to me, I don't know why this is, but I always was very comfortable just trying stuff in an improv class, knowing that it may or may not work out. Like, I don't know why I had that inherently, but I was just like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's just try it. But what I would discover as a teacher was that people were so afraid to do anything that felt risky at all. And I knew that that was an, you just couldn't get better at improv without failing more than you succeeded in the beginning. Like that's just it just doesn't work any other way. And so I was over the years, I was like, I'm emphasizing this dare to fail thing. And I don't know when I first said it, but I would repeat it 50 times in a class, and I still do because I just see the fear that people have, the hesitation. And I'm like, guys, I'm not saying it's okay to fail. I'm begging you to fail. A double dog dare you to fail because this is an improv class. There's no stakes here. We're just trying stuff. There's no audience. The only people here are your fellow students, and we've already committed to supporting each other and making each other look good. So why would you not try some stuff here and fail so that you can learn? So that way, when you're in a show, hopefully you won't fail on stage or as much.
Yeah, I guess like going to the gym and the coaches, the gym coach is sort of saying, Rich, you have to pick up the weight. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, but what if it's too heavy? What if
Yeah.
what if my form's not good? Just pick up a weight. Like just get a light one. Just pick up any weight and do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to establish what you can handle, you've got to put the reps in to get your form. Yeah, yeah. But what if it's too heavy? What if I get tired? Yeah.
You'll find that out. You'll figure it out pretty quick if it's too
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah, I get that. No, I love it. And there's so many things in our lives. And like I'm almost 62, and 18 months ago, I went and had my first swimming lesson.
Oh,
And I live right near the ocean, and we've always, we have beautiful temperatures. You can sort of swim in the ocean in winter if you live around here. If you come from our southern states, which would be like your northern states, and you're used to cold, you hop in the ocean here in winter, and it feels good.
nice.
But yeah, so just through fear, like when I was at school, early years of elementary school, they'd all stick us on a bus and take us to the local public pool, and there'd be 30 kids having a swimming lesson. Well, it was pretty easy if you were afraid to slip it through the crack and not have to do it because the teacher had way too many kids. So that was me. I was afraid, and yeah, just constantly being afraid of things. And yeah, once you have a go and you get at it, and now like I enjoy it. And just recent, like we've got a swimming pool in the backyard, but it's small. So probably a month
Mhm.
ago, I bought one of those bungee cord things and I hook it around a strap around my waist. And I swim in my own pool now as well to get extra practice because I go to the public pool 3 days a week. So I'm just sitting, like marching time in one spot, like swimming, but I'm getting my reps in, doing extra stuff. So it's become enjoyable now, finally, through
Yeah.
getting in there and like just being exhausted, do 25 meters one lap and then just hold on at the other end and puffing and exhausting and like, and I watch people do that now and I'm thinking that was me just a very short amount of time ago, yeah, it's so important to
It's amazing what a person can do, like even if they've never done it before, if they just give themselves the opportunity and the time to practice, and if they're willing, they're willing to be bad at it. Like you couldn't swim, so you swam badly until you swam better, and then now you're like, oh, I can swim now. But like you couldn't at first, and you had to go through a process. And I mean, I still struggle with that when I learn something new or go something new. But it's like that. It's funny because you're talking about lifting the weight as a metaphor, which is, if I lift the weight and I do it wrong, I could risk injury, right? So there's actual stakes there. In improv, there are no stakes except the ones in our own mind, but they feel so real. Like people would be more scared to jump on an improv stage than they would to lift a weight, even though the actual stakes are harder for lifting weights.
Yeah, yeah, and I hear that. Yeah, it's as the games we play in our head. So I'm curious too, like get back to the theme of the podcast, men
Mhm.
developing their intuition. Like when you're teaching improv or teaching teachers, or you're just doing improv yourself, do you think intuition plays much of a part?
Huge, absolutely. I never really use the word intuition. I don't know why, but it's exactly what I do. And it's, I think anyone who's really good at something, that's what you develop, is your intuition over time, right? So when I'm improvising on stage, if you stop me at any given point in the show and like did like a timeout and like, hey, what move are you going to do next? I couldn't tell you, because if I'm thinking in the future, I'm not going to be any good in the present. And so the only way that I know what to do next on an improv stage is to just feel it, which is, intuition. It's the same thing when I'm teaching. If an exercise isn't going well, or if someone's struggling with something, then my teacher brain, who's seen tens of thousands of students at this point, it goes, oh, I'm seeing a little struggle here, let me adjust this or add this or say this one thing to try and make it go a little better form or something like that. So it's all about feeling the moment. I call it reading the room. What, not just me, I mean, that's the term, but like intuition and reading the room are exactly the same thing.
Yeah. No, I love it when you say feeling it because that is really a big part of intuition. And some people, like, I mean, that, and people listening might be going, what does he mean by that? I mean, it could mean a physical feeling in your body. For you, I don't think you're physically feeling anything in your body because you're so like, going along. You might at times, I don't know. Um, when you say feel, are you meaning like a vibe, how?
Yeah, it's hard to really put in exact terms, but it's just something like, so if we were in a scene together and you started the scene by saying, "Sir, I'm going to need to see your license and registration," which in America that's what cops say when they pull you over. So we already know what that means. An improviser with very little experience might think, oh, I'm gonna be the person being pulled over, and I'm gonna be scared of the cop, and we're gonna have this little transaction scene. But I know from years of experience that there's not a lot of there's less comedy potential in that transaction than
Mhm.
if I were to make a different choice, right? And so, for if you said, "Hey, sir, I'm gonna need your license registration," if I then my line is, "Sir, he said he needed to see your license and registration. We're gonna need to see it now," right? So now I'm playing your fellow cop rather than the guy we're talking to, and now we're both talking to this person who's not what a video gamer might call a non-player character, right? Who's essentially not there. And now our dynamic trying to pull this guy over together, I see a lot more comedy potential in that. Or I feel a lot more comedy potential in that. So that's I'm probably going to make a move similar to that rather than the other one. Not because I've thought it through, just because in the moment I'm feeling that, for example.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so, like, the person being pulled over may never actually enter this scene. There's just the two cops bantering back and forth, trying to get an answer out of the person who was pulled over, who doesn't exist.
Yeah, and depending on the format of the show, one of us, me or my partner, might jump in and play that guy at some point and give him a voice, or we may never give him a voice and just pretend that he's talking in the silence. It's there's all kinds of options at that point, but I'm just that my intuition would say that's a better move in that moment than the obvious move.
Yeah. And so that's intuition and its experience as well, like playing in, and it's easier for you to flow intuitively because of the reps you've put in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that intuition, I'm certainly not going to say I'm an expert in all, but whether it's grand chess masters or whether it's acrobats or anyone who has to do like high level stuff, I think that your intuition grows in lockstep with your experience. So your intuition at first, you might have some, but the more time you log, the better your intuition, the sharper it gets.
Yeah. And I think the more you follow it, the louder it gets because it's very quiet.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. It's if you ignore it, if you get a little niggle that could be something, I could go that way, but oh, it's a bit scary. I'll hang back here. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't think it's whispering. I think you've got to block up. You've got your fingers in your ears, stopping it. I think it speaks the same volume all the time, but you tend to have your fingers in your ears. So you're like, I'm not listening. La, 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 la. Like, that's too scary. Don't tell me to do that. Because I know sometimes your intuition can be scary, like appear scary, again, throwing us into the fear factor. Um, and if it's suggesting something that's not scary, you'll maybe say it, do it, act on it, whatever. And there's some reward, which won't be like massive. You'll think, oh, that worked. Oh, that worked nicely. Oh, that's good. But I find if there's you're getting this nudge, a synchronicity, or some really big nudge to do something that's a little bit out or a lot outlandish, where you could get a lot of egg on your face or land in the mud, and you go with it. And I don't like using the word reward, but the benefit or the outcome's probably a better word of following it
Yeah.
is significant. You're like, wow, like, and you're sort of breathing a sigh of relief. You're thinking, gee, I'm glad I followed that. But now you tend to take one finger out of one ear and you're thinking, well, I am going to listen over here because that was pretty helpful. And if I got a nudge like that again, I'd be brave enough to follow it, maybe. But when you do, the nudges get, that you don't need to be nudged as much. You recognize it, you feel it, you hear it, not through your ears, but it's there. And then yeah, I find the benefits from it are can be pretty big and interesting and exciting. And potentially when COVID hit, you may have knowingly or unknowingly had intuition to start your online school. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there was fear there, but I think the intuition, definitely played in of like, I have the skills to do it. I have the means to do it. And as again, it was a dare to fail because like I didn't know if it was going to succeed or not, but I was like, well, why not try it? Like, what's the harm?
Yeah, and you probably had the time to do it at the time.
At the time, I had plenty of time, as most of us did at that moment.
Yep. And people had the time to go looking for things. And it was what a world changer. Like, I was saying to someone on a podcast the other week, I said, just imagine going back to 2019 and saying to
Yeah.
someone, and just pulling out all the positives that would have, like, pull out 100 positive things that would occur in the next 5 years and say, in 5 years' time, all of these things will be in place in the world. People will be acting this way, doing this. And you'd be like, what suddenly caused that? Like, did God come from heaven and just bestow all these wonderful changes and things on us? And you'd be like, oh, I'm not really going to tell you what happens. Um, but other things will happen as well. You may or may not enjoy them. But I
I'll
mean,
let part of it be a surprise, but
yeah, exactly. But are you excited? Oh yeah, that's going to be so good. You promise? You promise? Yeah, I promise all these good things will happen because there were so many wonderful things happened.
oh
But we,
sure.
we lost sight of them as they occurred because they occurred in lockstep with shit we didn't like.
Yeah. A
And
lot of bad stuff. Yeah.
so we didn't recognize them so much at the time. But imagine if you bought shares in Zoom in 2019, if it even existed then.
Oh
I have no
man.
idea. I
Sure. I don't know.
I don't know when it started. Um, but yeah, like pretty crazy. It's, crazy. And the fact that we're talking now is if we hadn't had COVID, probably, well, the world would be different anyway. But
It'd be
yeah,
super
no, that's,
different. Yeah. Hard to
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But
So
it's like nature does this, right? Like in forests, like there are forest fires that are not caused by man because like that's just nature happening and it kind of thins out and they use the dead tree parts to help fertilize the thing and regrow the forest and all this stuff. And so it's like, whether it's World War II or McCarthyism in the 50s or Vietnam or like whatever the world changing events are, unfortunately, a lot of bad stuff happens. A lot of trees burn in these metaphors, but then a lot of growth happens too. So, it's a yin and yang situation.
yeah, I have no idea in the US, but here in Australia, we've got native trees here that will not grow unless there's been a forest fire go through.
Mm.
And yeah, they have to have the heat of the forest fire, and then boom, in the following months, they're all those plants start growing. The seeds have cracked open or germinated or whatever from the heat. So yeah, very, very necessary. And yeah, I'm an ex-professional firefighter, so I understand all this stuff. So we get a lot of, and this will be controversial, but I'll say it. We get a lot of greenies sort of wanting us to not burn the bush because of all the koalas and because koalas are cute, but they forget about all the other uncute animals that are there as well. And they're like, oh, the koalas will die if it burns. The koalas have been dying for tens of thousands of years when lightning striked or whatever. And
Sure.
like, and then the koalas give birth. And the what, like it's just the cycle of life has gone on before we were here doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And things, and yeah, I won't go more into that one, but yeah, it's sometimes we need to go through the fire to come out the other side
It's
molded
interesting
differently.
because I've been listening to some of your podcasts in preparation for this, and you've talked about being a firefighter, and all, which all the way, mad respect. I've got like 6 firefighters in my family, so I love, big fan of firefighters in general. But I've actually been through firefighter training
Oh,
because of improv. Very circuitous route, right? Like if you'd asked me in when I was 18, hey, do you think you're ever going to go through firefighter training because you're a comedian? No, I did not. But on the cruise ships, there's one cruise ship in the world. It's called the Pride of America. It goes around the Hawaiian Islands. It's the only cruise ship in the world that's American flagged, meaning it never touches a foreign port outside of the US. It's all Hawaii. And because of that, it has its own very specific rules that don't apply to any other cruise ship. And one of those is that everyone who's on that ship for more than like, I think it's 3 weeks at a time, something like, well, there's some number. If you're a worker on the ship for more than that, you have to have fire training. So Second City paid for me and my cast to go to Hawaii early to do a week's worth of firefighter training that we had to pass in order to be comedians on the cruise ship. And it's not just us, like we're in that class with waiters and the cruise director and people from the engine room and all kinds of stuff. And we're all learning to put out fires just in case the boat sets on fire while we're entertaining people.
so did you get any good comedy material out of that?
Oh yeah, they had us go through a dark maze. It's I don't know what the terms are, but it's like a house where you can't see anything, and like it's you and 3 other people in a line, and you're crawling, and you're like touching each other so that you keep in the space. And the guy, so there's 4 of us on our team, and they were like, who wants to be the leader? Who wants to be in charge? And of course, no one's like chomping at the bit for that. So this guy who was probably in his late 50s, he was a drummer in one of the bands on the boat. He was like, I'll do it. And this guy looked like he'd smoked a lot of fire in his life, if you know what I'm saying. And he just couldn't. He was like, the whole time he was like, "Whoa, I think there's a corner. All right, guys, I think we're going to do a corner right now. Let's take a right. And we're all just like, okay, Jim, we're taking a right. And I'm sure people take it more seriously who are not musicians and comedians, but like it was just a really fun travel through this dark house with this drummer leading us. I thought it was great.
Cool, very cool. Yeah. And I'm curious, did they expose you to heat in there as well? Or was it just
I,
darkness?
I think it was darkness. I think there was maybe smoke or mist or something. I don't remember if there was heat in there, but we did actually put out fires with a hose, with a CO2. There was different things that we had to do that actually involved fire that wake as well.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very cool. Yeah. And 2 days a week now, I'm still doing fire safety training for a private company because the state I live in's got the strictest fire safety regulations in the country by a mile. So
Hmm.
there's just so many legal obligations of the employers that yeah. So and I love getting up in front of the class and entertaining them because I mean, who wants to do fire safety training? And so I usually open up with, look, I realize that your employer, like you guys are so excited to be here that your employer has cancelled the Christmas party and spending all the money on fire training. Like I can just see how pumped you are. And put up your hand if you've done this more than 5 times. And like half the room put their hands up. And so I say, well, I'm going to do a song and dance and I'm going to entertain you and keep you as interested as I can. And I do. Because I mean, I got the same script day after day. And sometimes I do it 4 or 5 times a day for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And it's the same script. So I got to keep myself entertained and interested, and keep
Yeah.
myself awake. Because sometimes I'm doing it in the evenings. I'm doing it all sorts of crazy times a day. And yeah, keeping them rocking and rolling and entertained.
I'll tell you what, the most memorable class to this day I've ever taken was a CPR course, like when I was, I think, 19 or so. And it was just I don't know, 3 hours or whatever it was, but it was taught by this ambulance driver slash, like he was a first responder. And, he could have just taken us through the things like, you do this, here's your certificate. But like, he made that class personal. He made that class that 3 hours meant the world to him, and the way he talked about us and told us stories and all kinds of stuff. And for whatever reason, that always sticks in my mind. And it just proves to me that, just like what you're saying, is that even if you have a script and this is 5 times a day and they have to do this and check it off a thing, you can still make any experience memorable to someone if you invest and care in it and you're present while you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I had a funny one yesterday. And I try and bring out emotion while I'm teaching people, like because they learn better if they're like, and what do they say? A picture tells 1,000 words, and so I'm trying to bring emotion in. I'm describing things. I'm painting a picture in their mind of an emergency scene that they might not enjoy, and like how are they going to deal with it? But I was in a very unusual location. I'm at a nursing home. And this
Mm.
nursing home, so I've got all the staff, I've got cleaners, I've got kitchen staff, I've got nurses, all sorts. And this nursing home happens to be where my 94-year-old mum is. And I've taught there
Oh.
before. And she's healthy, physically, she's very healthy, but her memory's shot. She only
Mm.
remembers the last couple of minutes, or except when she was a teenager. Like she tells you about that a real lot. And she
Yeah.
she comes walking past the room, and they had the curtains wide open, and my sister was with her, and my sister's pointing in, going, "There's Doug in there." And I'd been and visited a half hour before, but she'd forgotten. And so she's at the window, and my mum has shrunk a lot through the years through different medications. I won't say, oh, no, I won't announce the name of the medication, but she shrunk for, and she's literally 4'6", and I'm 6 foot. And she's walking past the room, and then she stopped, and she's like, "Oh," she's in a bit of a daze that her son's inside this room teaching all the staff. What's he doing? And so she's waving away at the window, and then she's looking at the staff who she knows all of them, and she's like, "Oh," because she's been there 4 years, and she's all excited. And it was really, all of a sudden, it was very emotional for me because I don't know how much longer she's going to be around. And so I'm in the middle of teaching this class. I'm trying to like get them enthusiastic, exciting. I'm bringing in like some emotion. And then my mum walks by, who I know is not going to be around that much longer. And it was just like, oh shit. Like, and I'm in front of the class and I'm like, and I've just got to like really quickly take my focus off my mum and you know, like if my mum was 60 or 70 years old walking past the door, I wouldn't think much of it. But at her age and she's still walking around with a little walking frame and that sort of stuff. But it was yeah, it was challenging. And to
I bet.
try and cut her out of my picture, and because all the whole room, all of their attention went to her because she's been there since the place opened, and they all know her, and she's a yakka, and she tells them the same story 75 times a day, and they know what she's going to say, and they all and but she tells the stories with a big smile on her face, like it's the enthusiastically, like it's the first time she's told them these stories, and so they get a gig, so they're all looking at her, and yeah, yeah, emotion is a big thing. So I'm curious with improv, like, do people get emotional when they're um, in the classes or they're on stage doing these?
I mean, as far as playing characters, like what is a character? A character is an emotion, movement, and point of view, right? So it's funny to me. Sometimes I'll hear people, especially newer improvisers, be like, "Oh, I bet if I had emotion here, it'd be better." Like, yeah, man, it's called acting. And so, but as far as personally, do people feel like emotions? Absolutely. After a great show, especially if it's like your first class and you do a good class show, people will be really like, it's like they won the Super Bowl, if they made an audience laugh doing this improv thing that they'd never even done before 8 weeks prior, something like that. And, it certainly happened where something would happen on an improv stage and afterwards, someone would get like, I can't believe you did that, it made me look bad or whatever. And egos get involved and bruised and things like that. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very much in at least any circles that I run in anymore. Usually people are pretty chill who I improvise with. And, we go out there, we do a show, and then afterwards, usually it's a good time and we're all like, yeah, great job. Let's go have a drink and talk about it or just decompress or whatever.
Because that word emotion is energy in motion. So it's and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure like in a good improv, not well, I was going to use the word class. I don't mean where they're learning, but what do you call it? Where
A rehearsal or a practice or something like that.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure when it's flowing, there's a lot of energy moving, like there's a lot of motion, a lot of yeah, and like you said, just it's moving quick and you can't even tell, you don't even know like 3 seconds before what's going to get said. And it just reminds me too, I presume you've seen it because it's a film clip from the States. There's a female reporter interviewing a famous baseball player, and someone hits and they're practicing behind them, and the guy hits the ball, and it's going to hit the lady in the head, and the guy just swings around with his glove without even really looking and catches the ball just
I
before it hits her in the head. Have you seen that clip?
don't think so. No, that's pretty cool.
No. And I know the baseball player's surname is Longoria because another guy I've interviewed
Mm.
on the podcast a year or two ago, that was his surname, and we were discussing it. So it's like the guy knew a second or two ahead that the ball was coming his way. He didn't even, I mean, he's played baseball so much, obviously, but the message came out. And I know I've listened to other studies where they put heart and brain monitors on people, and they'll give them a deck of photos to flick over and to look at, and there might be four photos in a row that have something pleasant or basic on them, and then the fifth one is like a picture of a car accident. Well,
Hmm.
maybe 2 seconds before they flick that card, their brain and heart functions change because they
Mm.
already know without knowing that in 2 seconds' time they're going to flip a card that's going to change their emotional state from looking at it. And so
Yeah.
I guess that's something similar happening with you guys with improv, where it just flows a second or two ahead without you realizing. It's sort of like you've had an extra second or two to listen to what the other person's just said, and almost goes in slow motion, but it's not. If that makes sense, I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, we don't have anything physical feats as impressive as the baseball thing. But, like, for example, in short form improv, the oftentimes you take audience volunteers to come up on stage for particular pieces throughout the show. And used to, I would just say who wants to volunteer, and I would take whoever. And as I got more experienced, I can't tell you exactly why I'll pick one person versus another, but I can tell you that the quality of my audience volunteers got a lot better. Not as far as can they improvise. I don't care if they can improvise. It's whether they're going to be a problem, right? And some people, especially people who like really want to volunteer, I'm extra wary of them because if they're drunk or if they're just obnoxious or both or whatever, like it's not that we can't make the show still work with that. It's just that it's harder and it's less pleasant. So my feeling for audience volunteers is a lot better than it used to be. And I can't tell you why I'm picking that lady versus that guy or whatever, but I can just tell you in my mind, she's our volunteer. She's the one who I want up here, kind of a deal.
And that's exactly what I want the audience to hear. A reason, a very good reason why men should develop their intuition, because you get a better result. It's easier, it's nicer, everyone enjoys it more because like you followed your intuition on, and like you said, you don't know why you picked that person, but you know you're getting better at it because you're listening, you're taking your fingers out of your ears, like out of your intuition ears, and now you don't know why you're picking them, but you know that your picks create a better result for everyone on stage and for you to manage. And yeah, so there's a good reason to develop your intuition, to listen to these hunches, these feelings, these still small voices, the tens of thousands of different ways the messages come through, knowingly or
Oh
unknowingly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Rather than just like, oh, I make shitty pitches, like choose choices all the time. And every time I choose someone from the audience, they jump up and they cause havoc. They swear,
Yeah.
and it's just the whole vibe drops in the room. And I've hardly got anyone coming to watch anymore because, I'm thinking of dropping that whole part out of the show because it's just, or you make good choices, because you're following a nudge. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I can't wait to bring someone from the audience in because it's the highlight of the show. Everyone's like, wow, they can't, like they don't believe that this is non-scripted. Now we bring their friend in and we know that she's not part of it. And it just kept flowing like, wow, these guys are so cool. And you're like, yeah, big difference. And then all go home pumped, or you go home feeling shitty because it went bad. Like, well, what do you want? You want to be pumped. Follow your
Yeah,
intuition.
yeah. You want the show to
Develop
go
it.
as well as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in stand up, there's like you're not taking audience volunteers, but like I used to host a lot of stand up shows. And when you host a stand up show, like you could just get up there, do your set, and then announce the next person, and then just keep doing that and just announce the next person, whatever. But like a good host reads the room. And so if the first stand up goes up there and they don't, and they bomb and they don't do well, right? A good host goes, oh, I need the energy to go up. So they're going to start riffing with the crowd to get the laughter back going before the next stand up. But if the stand up killed and you're being really present, you go, oh, I don't need to say anything. I just need to get the next person up here as fast as possible to ride off that energy. And again, you don't have time to do all that math in your head. You just feel it. Like I feel there needs to be a joke right now, or I feel I need to just get the next person up, whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And the benefit, you're following your intuition, your gut, whether you use that word or not, you're following that hunch, the vibe, the feel. Yeah, you
Oh
just
yeah.
know. Yeah, yeah. Whereas if you had someone who wasn't, they'd go, "Oh, we've got this massive high energy like we've never had in here before. And before I introduce the next person, I have to tell a joke. Did you hear the one about, yeah, it's just like the room's gone from 100%, 90, 80, 70, 10,
Yep.
6, and then it's flat. And then you're like, and then no one laughs at that joke. And then it's like, oh, welcome,
And you've royally screwed the next person.
Give a
Yeah.
big Texas welcome to Billy. Like,
Yay.
yay, let's go home. Throw the last thing you got at them and leave. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So men listening, listen in. These nudges, these hunches, the vibes in the moment are giving you what you need to hear. Yeah. So you're in your bio there, you talked about, and I've looked a couple of these things up. What was it? The gym one,
Gym Wildlife. Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's crazy. One of my sons, he's a gym junkie. Like he's every day at the gym, really pumped. And I sent it to him, and he was thinking it's hilarious. And so for the last year, like I was saying, I started swimming lessons. Where the public pools are, they've got a gym. So since January this year, I've started going to the gym as well. And I watched that 6 minute video that you narrated, and I'm like, classic. Most of these people are at my gym, particularly
Yeah.
when it said the teenage boys hogging the machine for hours, like a group of them, and I'm like, there's a public high school that has 2,500 students next to the gym and
Ooh.
swimming pool. Like, I mean, you don't have to throw a rock to hit it. You can spit to hit it. It's that close. So if you get there any time after 2 p.m., there's like huge amounts of 13 to 17-year-old teenagers in there, and they're in groups and they hog a machine for an hour, and they're all pumping each other up, and some of them are really skinny, very short 13-year-old boys, and you're
Yeah.
thinking, are you guys old enough to be in here? Like, like, are you actually in high school yet? Are you sure you're not still in elementary school? And yeah, 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 no, I love that one. That was a real funny one. And then you've written some stuff for the rap. Um,
Yeah, Epic Rap Battles of History. Yeah, I got to be a writer for them for 6 episodes. It was great.
nice. Yeah, I watched a few of those and I hadn't heard of those and they were really good. And rapping is a crazy thing. Like about 7 or 8 years ago, I was part of this business group and the people who were running it decided to put a lunchtime cruise on the harbour sort of thing on for us, like a networking thing, get us all there.
Nice.
And they had this guest speaker, and he was probably in his mid 30s, and he'd accumulated over 100 rental properties and this and that sort of thing.
Oh,
And he was throwing down the scotch, just drinking, drinking, drinking. And he was spruiking off that he was a good rapper. And,
okay.
you know, like here's a controversial thing again. He's a white guy, and I'm thinking, you're just drunk. You've got no idea. You couldn't rap because I didn't know him from anybody. But we're just sitting in a group of half a dozen of us, and I've gone, you're a rapper, and I'm like, yeah, right. Come on, you're drunk. And he goes, no. He goes, you just make up four random words, and I'll give you a rap song. And so another guy and I looked at each other and we gave him like we thought four super obscure words, and he's just sitting there and he swings down this drink, and then he just for the next like 2 minutes he just rapped that out, and we're just like mouths open, jaw drop. We're just like, what? Like, and then we just did it another 10 times and he just sitting there spruiking this stuff off. And he was so good. I mean, we wished he wasn't drunk because he probably would have been better. Um,
Sure.
and yeah, it was, we were shocked. Like, where did this stuff come from? And just, he'd be probably great on your improv stage, just letting it
Yeah, I
flow.
used to teach improv hip hop for a while, and I love improv hip hop. It's people, think improv scary, and then I said improv hip hop, and they're like, not. They're like, nope, not even a little bit. But it's just like anything else. Like if it interests you and you're interested in putting in the time and the practice to get good at it, anyone can get good at that exactly what that guy did. It just takes practice, right? There's this guy, English dude, Chris Turner. He's an American now, but born in England, and he is extremely white. He looks very British. He's got a very British accent. He even says, he goes, I look like I walked out of private school because I did, and but he goes around and he's actually on America's Got Talent now, or was. And he does the same thing. He goes to the audience and he's like, give me a topic, give me a topic, give me a topic. And then he will just riff, 5-10 minutes of rapping based on just the audience thing. And he blows people's minds with it. And he's very good. But the reason he's very good is because he's logged hundreds, thousands of hours practicing that skill over and over, which any of us could do, just like being a magician or anything else. If you're interested enough to put in the time, you can get there.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Putting in the reps. And yeah, at the moment, my kids have convinced me to start a TikTok channel to promote this
Ooh.
podcast. Now, I'd only been on TikTok 2 or 3 times, and it like the energy that's coming out of that phone screen, I'm like, holy, I'm just flicking past all the things. I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that. I'm giving them like a quarter. I'm thinking, I don't want to watch any of this shit. None of it interests me. So anyway, one of my sons, he went and did a search for stuff that he thinks dad would be interested in. And then he sends me a couple of links and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are interesting, but how would you find them on there? Because I'm just like, I don't want to know about it. So anyway, and then I'm thinking, I don't want to sing and dance. So they sent me, like a couple of videos where people have got like over 1 million followers and they're just sitting talking sedately like this. Like, one guy's like
Yeah.
older than me and another guy's, probably your age and they're just talking away. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then so my 24-year-old, he does video promotion stuff on Instagram and TikTok and all that for a living. So he's sort of talking
Yeah.
me through and he goes, Dad, the main thing I want you to do in the beginning is get the reps in. 30 seconds, 40 seconds, just hold up the phone anywhere you are. Like, and just as soon as you get something about men's intuition or whatever you want to talk about, just hit it, hit record, bang, upload it. So I've started to do that, and
Nice.
yeah, it's not hard for me to do because when I started the podcast, the first dozen episodes, I didn't interview anyone; it was just me, and I would just come up with a theme and go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about this or that. I'm going to talk about fear. I'm going to talk about emotion or whatever," and I'd just hit record, and away I'd go, and 20 minutes later, I'd just stop and I could just talk for 20 minutes. So for me to talk about something for 30 to 40 seconds is quite easy. And I'm not getting huge results or anything like that from it. And my son's just like, don't care about that right now, Dad. You've got to put in the reps. You've got to
Yeah.
get used to holding that phone and just talking to it and getting comfortable. And he said, one little tip he gave me, he said, just pretend you're talking to one of your coaching clients. Just pretend that you're giving them a 30-second bit of advice about something to help them with something that they just mentioned to you. I thought, oh, okay. So, so I've got my kids coaching me now. But the initial thing they've said to me, the reps, you've just got to do it. Doesn't matter whether you suck on it, you're good at it, or whatever. Well, we've got something to work on, and yeah, put in the reps, and for me, it's the same thing as with developing your intuition. Take those intuitive fingers out of your ears and listen to the nudges, to the hunches, to the feelings, and have put in the reps. Listen to it, act on what you're feeling. Yeah,
I tell my students, I say, I want you to trust your gut. And I say, if the scene doesn't work or if you don't get a laugh, whatever the metric is, if it doesn't work out, like, I don't care, because if you listen to your gut and it didn't work out, it's another rep, right? And the more you do that, the more that you sharpen that instinct. So when I try my best as a teacher to really follow through with this and celebrate a student for failing when they trusted their gut, because I'm like, that's great. And they're like, but it didn't work out. I was like, great. I don't care about the result. What I care about is that you did the mechanism, you trusted your gut, and that over time it will. And like, I read Annie Duke's book. She's a professional, world famous poker player, and she talked about how, like, as a poker player, you can't judge yourself by the outcome of any one hand, because luck and circumstances play too much of a role. She says what you judge yourself as a poker player is your decision making process over time, and that the average will almost always average out better, but it's, did I sharpen my ability to make the right decision rather than win the hand?
yeah, yeah. And I take it back to when I first started swimming. I would swim one lap and gasping, grab onto the end of the pool at the other end, like, oh, I did it. And then I'd be like, in the beginning, I was waiting till I fully got my breath back. And then as the weeks went on, it's like, oh, no, I'm still puffed, but I'm gonna try the second lap now, like half puffed. And I'd get halfway down the pool, and my mind would play crazy games on me, and I'd suddenly flick over and I'd just onto my back and just do backstroke, so I could, But at least I had the guts to take off a bit earlier while I was still puffing. I wasn't waiting to fully recover in my mind. I was trying to put in the reps a little quicker, and it didn't always work. I didn't do freestyle for the whole lap. I sometimes, balked and went to backstroke, but at least I did half a lap of it. I'm doing something. And now as the result, I'm not afraid to fail. If I know if I get halfway down that lap and my mind plays tricks on me and tells me I'm puffed, I haven't got enough air, I know I can just roll onto my back and keep going. But at least I'm having much shorter times between laps. Like now it's like half a second. I sort of hit the end of the pool, turn, push off, and swim again. But that wouldn't have happened if I'd have waited to be 100% recuperated in my mind, which was minutes, like between laps, which is not really when you're swimming. That's, you've got to continue to swim. So yeah,
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very important. Yeah,
You got to keep swimming, right? If
yeah.
Dory taught us nothing from Finding Nemo, just keep swimming.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So with these things you've been involved in, like writing and narrating and stuff like that, is that something you sought out, or people did it just fall on your lap accidentally, or you were looking for that sort of stuff? And the big success on that one that had got 44 million views, is that just like the pinnacle of a lot of things you've tried, or?
You know, I've lived in LA for almost 12 years now, and one thing that I've learned is that there is no formula for like how people get there, like how you get to achieve whatever it is you achieve. It's going to be a different weird thing. I used to think like when I first moved here, I was like, what's the procedure? What's the ladder I need to climb? This, that, and the other. And ask anyone who's got any level of success at all, and their story will have all these individual little things that you couldn't possibly plan for. For example, this friend of mine years ago, he probably still is, but he's an off-camera reader for casting directors. So you go into an audition, he's the guy who's literally reading the other lines and hitting record on the camera and stuff. And when I first moved out here, I met him and I was like, hey, dude, how can I get your job? Like, that seems like a job that would really be good to practice and learn a lot about the audition process. And I was like, how does one get that job? And he's like, he couldn't tell me because he doesn't know, because he didn't seek out that job. He didn't apply. It was just, he had a random circuitous story about knowing this person and this person needing it, this and available here and blah, blah, blah. And, that video that's 44 million views, my intuition was terrible on that one because so the story is I did this tiny little independent film that I just auditioned for off some random, website. It was a film that meant nothing and it didn't go anywhere, but it was just a filmmaker getting his reps in, trying to learn how to be a filmmaker. And so I did that, totally forgot about it, didn't think about it whatsoever. And then one day I was just bored. And so I recorded myself doing a bunch of different voices and I uploaded it to Facebook just as I don't know, just something to do. Well, that filmmaker who I'd worked for 6 months ago happened to see that video. He happened to be working on this Jim Wildlife video, and it was already narrated. They'd already cast a narrator. He'd already done the part, but the filmmaker, the director, he didn't like it. And he wanted to go with someone else. He saw my reel. He'd worked with me before. So he just reached out to me and he goes, hey, would you mind narrating this thing of mine? I can't pay you, but I think it'll be a big deal, blah, blah, blah. And I was really busy that day. But I said, all right, I'll figure it out. I'll make some time. So I go to his house and we're in his bedroom. He lives with his parents. He's probably in his mid-20s or something. And I'm in his bedroom and he's showing me the video and the script, and he's having me narrate it. He's giving me directions. And the thing is 6 minutes long. The video was already done. And I'm just giving him an alternate narration in case he wants to use it. And he's like, this thing's going to be huge, man. It's going to be huge. And I'm like, okay, buddy, sure it will. And I'm thinking like, who's going to sit for a 6-minute YouTube video, blah, blah, whatever. So he fought the producers to get my narration in over the original guys because he liked it better. So the producers acquiesced. They put in mine and they launched it. I want to say January 1st of whatever year it was, 2016 or something. And, I get a text from him like 2 hours after it launched, and he goes, we're already on the front page of Reddit. And I'm like, I didn't even know what that meant. I'm not a Reddit user. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. And I checked the YouTube, and it already had like 3 million views within a couple of hours.
Wow.
And I was like, oh man, my intuition was way off. Like my intuition wasn't, I should do this in case it becomes something cool. It was, I guess I'll do this because I'll find the time this guy's asking me and it's nice to be asked and whatever. And it turns out, I was wrong in the best possible way, because that is still, I mean, no one cares about that video anymore. It's old and whatnot. And you can't even tell that it's me. I'm doing a fake British accent and my name's not even on it. You have to go to IMDb to even prove that I'm the guy. But it's still a cool story. And again, the reason I got it was not because I auditioned for it and was trying to get it and this, that, and the other. And it's the same with Epic Rap Battles of History. Like I was, I did a show, a live show where I did some rapping, and the guy who's in charge of Epic Rap Battles, or one of the two, he saw that I happened to kill that night. He happened to be needing a writer at the time, and so it just happened to work out. It's not like he put a worldwide search. If I'm looking for the three best improv hip hop or hip hop comedy writers, and I'm going to search through everyone's resume or whatever, it's like he didn't have time for all that. He was just like, oh, I have a problem, and this guy who I'm looking at right now seems to be like a good solution. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. And like you say, with the gym wildlife one, that even though the guy said to you straight up, this is I can't pay you, but like it's
Yeah,
going to be really big. It's going to be cool. Just to have been a part of that, to have that on your resume, like
yeah.
internally, you're like, yeah, I was a part of something big. Like I know I've got it in me. I know I have the ability. I've got the skills, or I've got the runs on the board. You put in the rep, and that rep that day was probably no more harder or anything than any other rep you'd done,
Oh
but
yeah,
that one paid off big. So it's like, if we knew every 100th rep was going to pay off like 100 times and all the others are just going to be basic, you just got to do it. And I remember one of my sons, many years ago, got into sales. And he was, I mean, I don't know if you've ever done cold calling sales. It's challenging. I've done it back in
yeah.
yesteryear. And I said to him, and it's still got it in his brain. It's just a whole numbers game. Like
Oh
if
yeah,
you knock on 25 doors, you'll get to talk to five people, one of them will buy. So it's just like, whatever the figures are, like it doesn't matter. So
yeah,
if you knock on 25 doors, you'll make one sale and you're not getting paid $50 for the sale, you're getting $300. So and then you divide $300 by 25. So every time you knock on a door, you make $17.50 or $27, whatever it is. Um, you just knock on the door, and on the law of averages, you're gonna, and some people do better than others, but yeah, it's just you've got to put the reps in. And that might be the name
I
for this
coach
podcast.
scripted actors a lot, and the number one thing is like they get frustrated that they didn't book. I haven't booked in a while, and I'm like, your job isn't to book. Your job is to audition. The booking is an emergent property of being really good at auditioning a lot. And I said, you can be the best audition in the world, but you remind one producer of their brother-in-law who they don't like, and then you don't get the job. And it's not because you weren't talented, right? And it's like you can't control anything beyond the audition. Your job is to audition. Just like if you're a salesperson, your job is to make the cold call, not to close the deal. That is that's what happens because you were so diligent in making all the cold calls.
Yeah, yeah. We years ago we had our own scuba dive resort north of the equator in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and we would have a lot of people come through, photographers and stuff. And one guy, he'd come probably 3 times through the years, and he made a living from taking underwater photos for magazines and things like that. And talking to him about cameras and stuff one day, and he says, Doug, the reason I'm so successful is I just take a shitload more photos than anyone else. He says now we've gone digital. He goes, I'll wrap off like on one 60-minute dive. He said I'll take 400 photos easily.
Yeah.
He said I might keep one, but he said I'm just like back in the years before when they were on film, they had 36 frames, so he could only take 36 photos. He said you had to be really good then. You had to know what you were doing because you had limited.
Mm-hmm.
You could only had 36 reps. That's all you could do. So they had to be, you had to polish these skills some other way. But he said now it's digital and you can just shoot off as many as you want. He said that's why people put my photos in their magazines because I've got more to choose from. So yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so
You
it's
fold a lot more hands than you play in poker, and you throw away a lot more of your writing than you actually keep. It's what you can apply this to so many different mediums.
yeah, yeah. But if you're a writer, you've got to write, and
You got it right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's I mean, it could be laziness, but I think part of it's fear that for me anyway, that would keep me from um, doing a lot of things. I'm just too afraid to put the reps in at times. And I probably 7 or 8 years ago, I had the time and the money to learn piano, so I went once a week to a piano teacher. But by the end of the year, I couldn't sort of do much at all. And I did practice in between. I had a electric keyboard, so I put my headphones on so no one could hear me, and
Sure.
um, it was just me listening. But yeah, I just didn't put enough reps in. And I've got a sister who's a few years older than me, and she can't read music, but she plays beautifully. She just listens, she plays
Mm,
by ear. And I'm extremely jealous of her for that thing because the one instrument on the planet I love is the piano. I mean, I
nice.
like others, but it's my favorite is the piano. And, my
Yeah.
teacher said you've picked kind of a difficult thing because you've got to be able to use both hands at once. So you're reading two lines of music at once, which I didn't realize any of
Sure.
that. I was so ignorant of, the arts. And,
Sure.
but I would have loved to have, like when I was 15, I jumped on a bus and went 12 hours and then caught a plane home to go and see an Elton John concert because I just loved how he played the piano. And but yeah, I never put
Yeah.
enough reps in to get it. I think I was wanting to be my sister, sit down and just play. Yeah,
Well, Mark Twain famously said a classic is something everyone wants to have read, but no one wants to read. And it's like, I want to do a lot of things in my mind if you skip the whole effort part. Right. But the reason that my friend who's a magician is so good is because he takes enough joy out of the effort of practicing magic that he sticks with it, right? And or Elton John loves playing the piano badly enough to where he was good enough to get good, and that kind of thing. It's like if you don't love writing every day, but you want to be a good writer, that's a tough sell, right? Like you have to love the bad parts of it as much. It's kind of like falling in love with someone, right? Like anyone can love the good parts of someone, but if you're committed to someone, you got to love even their foibles and their idiosyncrasies and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah. I remember a couple of years ago, my wife had a pretty serious injury in her spine, and as the months went by and it was starting to get better, people recommended she go to this sports rehab place, and they have four different pools of different temperatures, and the coldest one's slightly above freezing, and like 32. So yeah, probably like mid to high 30s in temperature, and I got used to that one pretty quick, and I used to love just getting in that one, dropping straight down to my neck. And it's the ice bath. It's the ice bath with no actual physical ice in it, but it feels like
Yeah.
the same. You're in the beginning, you're burning, and I used to love it. Like I actually found it easy to do. Just in it, straight down to your
Mm.
neck, big exhale, and you sit in there. And there's a timer for 4 minutes, and then you hop out and go into a warmer pool, and then back you rotate around. And yeah, I used to see the big gym guys, all the big muscles, they'd be coming in because they'd had a big workout somewhere, and in they'd come and they'd stand there, and they'd sort of like tippy toe in, and it would be just up to their, like the top of their thighs. And they'd stand there like that for 3 minutes thinking they were in the pool. I'm like, just guys, just do it. Like, and for whatever reason, I just found it easy, just straight down. And I didn't necessarily enjoy it. And I would walk to the furthest point away from the stairs that I could, because most of the time I was afraid that I would just jump up and run to the stairs and get out of there, because I wasn't necessarily
Yeah.
enjoying it, but I could get in and do it and happily hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
put yourself in a position to make it, easier to not just bail.
Yeah, yeah, but the pleasure was the big, muscly guys coming in and were too
Yeah.
scared because they just couldn't do it. They'd be there like, oh, I can't do that, and I'm thinking, you have done a million reps. I can see those muscles, and the whole reason
Yeah.
you're here is to help recover. Like you get the blood flow going in and out because it burns. It literally burns, and pins and needles and all sorts of crazy stuff. But yeah, no, I get it. You got to find those things that you love to hate, and it's good to do things that you don't enjoy because it makes makes reverse parking easy when you've done, you
Right.
know,
Yeah, exactly.
it's like I've
You
done
want to
all
get
this
good
other
at it.
stuff. Yeah. So,
Look, I don't like driving in LA traffic, but I do it, and I got a lot better at it because I forced myself to keep doing it.
yeah, no, I hear, yeah, I know the couple of times I've visited over there, I've always only been a passenger. And, although, no, I did rent a car from LA once and drove up to San Francisco. Yeah, no,
Nice.
I've done that one time.
Good little
And,
road trip.
yeah, fortunately, I was on my own because when we've gone to Europe a couple of times and rented cars with my wife in the car, that hasn't worked so well because, yeah, I've got her trying to navigate, and yeah, it gets stressful. But yeah, driving on your own's a bit easier. If you miss the
Sure.
turn or whatever, there's no one there to tell you you missed the turn.
Well said.
It's less stressful, put it that way. Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed our talk.
Yeah,
And
me too, Doug. Thanks so
yeah,
much.
and the intuitions come through very well. And I think it's explained to the men listening why to do it. We've talked about
Yeah.
how to, but it's like, why would I want to do that? Like, that's a girl's thing. That's what ladies do. Like, I've got suspicions that this has been deliberately hidden from men because we're actually, and the ladies listening won't like this. I think traditionally, a long, 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 long time ago, men were actually so in tune with their intuition. Well, you look at the shamans and all those sort of things.
Yeah,
It's a mix between
for
men and
sure.
women, but there's a fair few men in that
Yeah.
they're the ones, like I think it's been deliberately stolen off us to because we're so powerful with it when it's fully developed. So, and it's not my reason, I'm not trying to be all powerful. That's not why I'm trying to develop it. But I just think it stops us being hoodwinked. Because again, the last 5 years, there's been a lot of things on the media, social media, the normal media, that conflict. And it's like I'm hearing all these different things and they're all saying different things, which is true. Who knows? And what's true for you might be not quite so true for me. And so if we've got an inner voice, something that's telling us what's where you should go, what you should do, when you should do it, you've got your own inner compass and things will just work better for you rather than listening to all these conflicting outside influences that are confusing. You've got an inner knowing, a calm, something you can trust and rely on. And I
Yeah.
just think, yeah, it just makes your life more enjoyable when you can go inside to get your answers. So, because there's too
I
many.
really appreciate that you're spreading that word because there's so many, people on the internet, podcasts and whatnot saying to men like you should do this and you have to do this and you have to like here's the procedure for a good life and if you don't have intuition to say hey maybe these guys are full of shit
Mm,
and I don't have to do this or I can take just what I need from it and not feel bullied by these big personalities and whatnot like it's really a safety thing because we can fall prey to hucksters and things. Our intuition helps us avoid those kinds of people.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's one. My son rang me a couple of nights ago and he was telling me the story. And this was a story, it wasn't about a man, it was about a woman who's big in business. And she'd met some guru who'd published a book and she'd read the book and everything was awesome. And she started helping him to promote things and all this sort of stuff. Cut a long story short, she's acted on his wishes because he's this guru and all knowing and all sorts of stuff. And next thing, there's a $20,000 bill for all this stuff. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's not my bill. That's your bill. And anyway, and then she said to my son later, she
Awful.
goes, there were red flags the whole time. And she got overawed with the book and with how he spoke and his presence and everything like that. And now there's legal
Yeah.
action over who's going to pay this $20,000 bill. Um, and she knew the red flags were there, but she got caught up
Yeah.
in it. Yeah, so yeah, go in. So the red flags are there for a reason. Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, Alrighty, before we wind up, is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to mention? And I'm going to have all your contact details in the show notes, but
Oh, thanks. I would just say that my online improv school is available to anyone in the world with an internet connection. I actually have worked with people in Australia before, and the first drop in is free. So literally anyone done improv, never done improv, doesn't matter. Like if you just want to drop into one of my classes for free, you just reach out to me and we'll schedule it. And I even if it scares the hell out of you, I truly don't care if someone drops in one time for free and I never see them again. That's totally fine. But I encourage people to do it because why wouldn't you? It's just 2 hours of your time and maybe you'll learn something.
yeah. And are any of the classes after 1 or 2 p.m. your time?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
I've got
okay. So
classes at all different times. Yeah.
yeah, so that suits people from Australia because it's almost 8 a.m. here now. So yeah, anything so you're not going to have to lose some sleep. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
jump
Yeah.
on.
Not all my classes will work for time zones, but some of them will.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, excellent. All right. Thank you for your time. I've really
Thank
enjoyed it,
you.
and I've learned, and it's you. Some of the things you've said, I know will help me overcome some of my fears in the future. Thank you for that.
Oh, that means a lot, Doug. Thanks so much for having me on here.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.